Good morning. Thank you for joining us. This is our very second episode ever of Lady Bosses. We are so thrilled to be together today and joined by Reverend Faith Fowler, Cass Community Social Services. Thank you so much for taking some time to be with us.
Thank you for the invitation.
We thought it's April and we're all, so many religions are celebrating this month, miracles in so many different religions. And we thought, what a great opportunity to have a woman of faith, who is paving the way in so many different ways, be with us and join us today on the Lady Bosses show, just for some inspiration and also to share with us some things that are going on in this Metro Detroit area that us Lady Bosses can get involved with. We're going to just kick right off. We've got a really fun conversation. I'm going to start with a little story. I had the honor of hearing Reverend Fowler speak maybe 8 or 9 years ago at this point, and she told a story about one of the very first time she preached at Cass Community, and this story changed my life and has stayed with me, and I use this as a foundation point for so many things that I think about. She said she was preparing her message and nervous and getting ready to preach, and was into her sermon and in the inner city in Detroit in the Cass community, and an individual came into the back of the sanctuary and screamed, "You're out of toilet paper." And it was in that moment she realized, and I'm obviously paraphrasing, she did a lovely job.
You're very funny.
And she realized in that moment that unless we meet the physical needs of the individuals in our communities, we will never have the opportunity to meet their spiritual needs. And it really was just pivotal for me in understanding that even just as friends and family and people and the people that we connect with, if we're not meeting each other's physical needs and we're not taking care of each other physically, we don't have the opportunity to have time to get to the spiritual needs. And so I just thank you for sharing that. I know it's something that you share in other talks that you give, but so that was really, a pivotal moment for me, and I carry that with me still today. I teach my son about this now. We have to make sure everybody's okay before we ever wonder how they feel and all of that. So thank you. So we have a few questions for you. We want to talk about your mission and Cass Community, but first tell us a little bit more about Cass Community Social Services and the work that you do there.
Sure. So I arrived at the church 28 years ago. And many of the things we're doing now, programs we have at this time at Cass, actually have its roots long before I arrived. So I want to give credit to the people I followed. It began doing social outreach really during the Great Depression, when it started a soup kitchen that has never stopped. We do 7 days a week, 3 meals a day, 700,000 meals a year. Wow. So, and it doesn't matter. Is it a blackout? Is it a snowstorm? We've delivered food to people down the street with shopping carts sometimes when we have to.
That's
During
incredible.
COVID, we delivered to over 20 zip codes in the city of Detroit so people could have food who couldn't go out because of either being sick or being vulnerable to being sick. So that's the start of things, the food program. We grow some. We work with Gleaners and Forgotten Harvest and religious organizations and schools to try and keep people fed. Indeed. What she said was, "Hey, lady," because she didn't know my name.
I love it.
"Hey, lady, we're out of toilet." And she bellowed it. She belted it. I mean, you couldn't go on speaking if you wanted to. I guess you could, but nobody was listening at that point, which is a common problem I have. But anyway, so we started with food, and it has a long history of doing important ministry. And then really the congregation, because there was no nonprofit initially, it was simply the church folks, began reaching out to people who were mentally ill and deinstitutionalized, and the homeless who were deinstitutionalized, and the developmentally disabled. So we currently do housing for homeless people, 300 men, women, and children a night. street. Many children, loud children, and by the way, pets. We started this last year having emotional support for dogs from like 20 pounds to I think 65, 70 pounds, which sounds like nothing until you realize everybody's in one congregate setting. And so you have some people afraid of dogs, and some people allergic to dogs, and dogs not liking other dogs. So it was a real adjustment for us. Fortunately, the Humane Society was wonderful in terms of offering vaccinations and food and that kind of thing. Between you and me, if somebody said, Reverend Fowler, you can come into the shelter if you leave your dog, I'd still be in my car.
Right.
So
that's a really good point.
Mm-hmm. So that's important to us. So food, housing, healthcare. We have a free medical clinic that's been in operation for 30 years, and a day program for developmentally disabled adults who also were deinstitutionalized in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. 130. It's where I go when I'm having a bad day. We have a whole floor, 11,000 square feet of adults who are developmentally disabled who come Monday through Friday. And when I'm having a bad day, and everybody has them, I go up to that floor, and when you enter the room, they yell, Reverend Fowler, it's so good to see you. You look so wonderful. When are we going to camp? Did you bring us any tree? I mean, and they hug, and they stop. Whatever they're doing, they stop. And you could walk out and walk back in a minute. Reverend Fowler! I mean, back in the day, I would have said I felt like Princess Diana, just wave to the adoring crowds. They just are unconditional love. I mean, man, I know it's hard on families and caregivers round the clock. I get it, but for me, that program is as close to heaven as I know. It just is. So food, housing, healthcare, and then jobs. In 2007, we started looking for work because our people couldn't find any. So different than today, right? But back then, not only were there no jobs in our neighborhood, our folks didn't have cars, the buses didn't go to the suburbs, people had been to prison, people had been to war, people were physically handicapped, mental health issues. So all kinds of things were working against them. And they kept saying to me, help me. So I read this article about Native Americans in Oklahoma who were taking tires and making mats, like doormats. We call them mud mats. And I called them up, and I'm not often politically correct. So I said, we stole your land, and now I'd like to steal your idea. And the man started laughing. Thank goodness he started. And then he gave me every last detail that was needed to start this business of taking tires. And Detroit has lots of tires.
Right.
They're everywhere. There are mountains of tires, right? And they're bad neighbors. Tires, it becomes hard to cut the grass. They become breeding grounds for mice and rats and insects. Occasionally somebody sets them on fire. They burn forever. They burn hot. They put toxins in the air. So we just started picking up tires, and we've picked up over 100,000 of them.
Oh my.
In a city that for a while was bankrupt and didn't have the resources to do. And the neighbors are very happy. And then we began employing homeless men in particular, and we have made them since 2007. And it gives people a small income and a reference and a place to go and a chance to feel like they're making a difference, right? They're in the front line of the Green Revolution. And then since then, we've added just a slew of jobs, all tied to sustainability, including shredding, which is good for the developmentally disabled. Do you know why?
Why?
Well, because lots of people have sensitive information. Doctors, lawyers, accountants,
sure.
And I can promise them that if we do your shredding, not only do we have the cameras and the bells and the alarms, but the people who touch your paper and see your paper can't read it, write it, remember it, or tell
Wow.
it. It's the safest place on the planet.
Yeah.
And so we do tons and tons and tons of paper that used to go into the incinerator in Detroit. Now Detroit is doing much better in terms of recycling, but still it's good for the planet. You're not cutting down more trees to do more paper, and employing people. Developmentally disabled adults have an unemployment rate of 80%.
Wow.
80.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID, during COVID, after COVID. And still, you say to them, do you like your job? Because maybe you think, oh, it's monotonous shredding paper. You know what they say? They don't say anything. They just do this with their fingers, meaning we like the money. And they come in with new watches and new hats and new shoes, and they talk about going to the movies and out to dinner, and it just warms your heart, And they're really good workers. They're showing up. They want a paycheck. Awesome. They're showing up every day, every time, and are happy doing it. We have done work recycling wood and glass and metals. We scrap quite frequently. We've begun some work with solar. Actually, we took 2 teams, one to Liberia to light up a school that had 300 students and no lights, no fans, no computers, no. And at the end of the week, every classroom was outfitted, including a computer room.
Oh, that's incredible.
By people who learned simple solar at Cass. Then after Maria, we went to Puerto Rico and set up 50 families with electricity. They went for over a year.
Yeah.
Imagine if, by the way, you're diabetic and need insulin. What do you do? So we not only went there with equipment, but we showed other people how to install it as well. So green jobs. Prior to COVID, we had 130 people working in there. We had to scale way back because many of our people have physical ailments, but we're starting to ramp up again.
That's awesome.
Food, housing, healthcare, and jobs. That's what we do with a lot of volunteers.
Just those couple of things. Just amazing, life-changing work.
This is Lady Bosses.
Yes.
Lady Bosses.
And thank you for the cookie.
Oh, yeah. And we just wanted to know, what is it like? Have you had any hurdles being a female in this kind of business as a faith-based business and as a reverend?
So when I started in the ministry, before I went to seminary, I had never met a woman minister, ever. Hadn't heard one
When was
preach.
that? What year?
Well,
Just a couple of years ago. Just a couple of years.
What kind of program is this? Next
couple of years ago.
How much I weigh, for God's
I won't
sake.
ask for your driver's license.
A long time ago, Lincoln was president, and no, but I mean, did people always say, did somebody influence you? Well, not really. Actually, when I went to my junior high pastor and said, I think I'm being called by God, he said, I think you're wrong.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Hello.
Yeah.
Talk about encouragement.
Right.
So over the years, things have really changed. Since then, I've had a couple what we call district superintendents, or my boss, who have been women, and a couple bishops who have been women, both black and white, by the way, which has been wonderful. So things have really changed. It used to be early on, if I did a funeral or that sort of thing, people would approach me afterwards and say I was the first woman they had ever heard. And
wow.
they didn't throw tomatoes, so that was good, right?
They just wanted their toilet paper.
Yeah, actually, funeral homes do better than churches, especially poor city churches. But anyway, so I don't know that it feels much like a hurdle any longer based on gender, but clearly initially we were breaking some ground. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And do you find, I guess, kind of building off of that a little bit, and just in terms of being a woman, it's wonderful to hear that it's progressed significantly.
Yep.
But do you find that there have been stigmas or stereotypes or things like that get attributed to women pastors as opposed to, male pastors?
Ah, boy. So silly things. A lot of people are paying attention to what you're wearing, right?
I think we experience that in everything, right? A lot of industries more than men
Well,
might.
even remember Hillary Clinton running for president. Whether you liked her or not, we weren't talking about anybody else what they were wearing, and they were always talking about which is who cares? I mean, she was clothed properly, right?
No, her pantsuits got a lot of commentary, right?
I think with every other woman on the planet, are you too assertive? Are you aggressive? Are you too passive? Are you spending too much time building teams and not leading like a bulldozer? So there continues to be criticisms. I'm single. I know that ministers who are married get a lot of flack if they pay attention to their kids. Like, what kind of role model would you be if you didn't pay attention to your kids?
Wow, yeah.
Right?
Flack in terms of they're spending too much time.
Too much time, yep. Yeah. Or husbands, or, now women are sandwiched between parents and children, or sometimes taking care of grandchildren because of a missing mom or dad or both. So there are those kinds of criticisms that I don't think we're done with yet, unfortunately. I think the general population is finally figuring out that we're not all the same, that we have different preaching styles and different leading styles and different experiences in life, and that's good. I mean, dear God, we're half the population. Of course, we're not all the same silly things. So yeah, some of it persists, but as I say, it's certainly we're not where we were, and we're not where we need to be.
That's good.
Some women would complain about compensation. I am blessed. I don't have any criticisms, although you'd like to see pay be even. In all walks of life, by the way.
Absolutely.
Sure,
right?
absolutely.
Some women might complain about appointments, whether the big churches are run by men. That's changing too, for more than one reason.
Yeah. So a lot of similar patterns, unfortunately, in certain ways, right, that we see in all industries.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So kind of switching it a little bit, as we talk about women too, and as lady bosses, and we're all here to learn from each other and support each other. When you think about kind of your faith and all faiths, are there any things that come to mind in terms of, as women of diverse faiths and backgrounds, how we can kind of specifically help lift each other up from a faith perspective?
Yeah. Whew, this is where I'd really like to take the lead. Because we've been siloed for far too long, and there's so much we share in common, and there's so many chances, opportunities for us to support each other, not only when there are tragedies like mass shootings, right, which continue to occur far too frequently, but for the values we hold in common, right, about justice and fairness and compassion and empathy, and those things aren't exclusive to one religion or another. We certainly have that. But then also sort of the personal side of things, to actually make a call or send a note or offer a prayer for somebody who's either done very well and needs to be at-a-girled, or for somebody who's up against the wall and needs to be reminded, it's not all doom and gloom. There's another day, and we're going to stand with you silently, probably, to listen to you. Right? Listening is, I think, the most religious thing we can ever do. Truly trying to listen to somebody else and understand their experience. But you're not going to be alone.
It's so beautifully said.
Wow.
Thank you.
Listening, that is, I think,
quotable.
something we all need to hear, right?
Right.
Listening is the most religious thing we can do. If we did that, all of us, what an amazing tone we would set. Women in business, humans, right? People who need to be able to listen to each other. That's amazing. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. So we've shared a little bit about the work that Cass does, and your work there, and just your heart for that work, and it, I've followed the ministry's work and followed the work of the social services, and I don't think I've even knew as much of what you did. So I'm glad that we had this opportunity to talk.
Sure.
What are ways that people can give back, that we can get involved in this work? Feeding, clothing, housing,
right.
healthcare. I think I missed one, but
Jobs,
yes. What are ways that people can tangibly get involved? How can we make that impact? How can we make that transition from thinking about the good work to maybe being a part of it?
Right. So there are lots of ways. I started to mention before, volunteers are our backbone. It's the reason we're able to stretch our budget, if you will, because they come in as unpaid labor and help us do a variety of things, painting, cleaning, moving, programming for children, especially in the summer when they're off school. We have days in the park where we do arts and crafts and rec things, or with our developmentally disabled people love trips and games and opportunities, to do things they normally don't. Last year we took them to Cedar Point. Oh my goodness.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was a long day, but they had the time of their lives. We took them to Mackinac Island. So it takes lots of extra people to make that sort of thing occur. Food, can you make a sandwich? Can you peel onions? Can you, when you go shopping, do you get 2 for 1 sometimes? We'd like the extra one. Doesn't matter what it is.
Simple.
Because we
Yeah.
either can send it out, right, to people in the neighborhood who need a box full of food, or we can use it in the kitchen where there's just never enough. To like things or share things online is always good, because what I find is people don't know what we do. They
Right.
may even know our name but don't know what we do, and
Yeah.
so helping to educate the public for PR purposes is a really good thing. We have folks who help with more specific skills. For instance, with the tiny homes, we have an architect who's donated his time with
wow.
drawings
Yeah.
for the last couple of years. I was at a Rotary meeting in Ann Arbor, and when I was done, I was asked to talk about the tiny homes, and I did. And when I finished, this gentleman came up. I didn't know him, part of the Rotary, and he said, "Hi, I'm so-and-so. I'm an architect. If you ever need anything." And so I reached in my pocket, and I pulled out a picture of a Victorian tiny house. And I said, "I saw this online, but I can't find the drawings anywhere. Could you draw me the house?"
And you just had it in your pocket. Perfect.
As one does.
So don't leave home without it,
That is
And
awesome.
since then, he's helped us perfect probably a dozen houses, all for free. I'll share it
Oh, that's
where
awesome.
fantastic.
So you never know.
Yeah.
Often we have to write a business plan. A, we don't have time. B, I don't have the expertise. Would you come and help us put together a bit? One of the big dreams I have right now is opening a grocery store. We asked the community last summer, what's the number one thing you want? And the number one thing they wanted was a grocery store. So now how do I do it? A, I've never opened a grocery store, right? I visit them frequently. But
I don't even do that.
I want to do it to tie in with our green future.
Right.
So here's the idea: create a grocery store that doesn't use any plastic.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what we're working on. But if there's a business person out there who
Right.
could help me think through the logistics of how
Yeah.
you make that happen from scratch.
Right.
So often we need mental horsepower. It's not that we don't have smart people at Cass. It's just we're busy.
Everyone has their spot.
Right. Lawyers help us. Real estate people help us. Accountants help us. And then sometimes corporations come in. And HAP has come in many times to work in the kitchen, or GM or Ford or other smaller. It's a great way to team build, to figure out who your colleagues is. And it's a great way to experience a whole nother community and culture and be reminded that everybody can make a difference. You just have to make up your mind you want to, right?
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So you heard it here, right? Anyone can help with this work. Whatever your thing is, whatever your lane is, you can probably offer to be a support. And certainly, if you have an idea or business expertise on how to start a grocery store, Reverend Fowler would like to hear from you.
Without plastic.
That's amazing. And I know there are some people who are doing similar types of work.
Yeah, so
where you can go and pick up supplies, bulk.
I've gone to see bulk stores. I'm not sure that would work in our neighborhood at first.
Right.
Because I just don't think it would at first. So we're playing with different ideas. I was reminded of Dr. King's quote, which is, everybody can be great because anybody can serve. I mean, yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That is it. That's amazing. Thank you so much. And so I know, Carol, you want to talk to us a little bit about something really cool that's coming up that you're doing.
Yes. I want to talk to you about Oakland Thrive. For all you guys here in Birmingham and Bloomfield, you may have heard before about the one-stop shop. There's actually now Oakland Business Forward, which is a government entity, and then Oakland Thrive, which is the nonprofit that's carrying out, the way I understand it, they're being funded so they can help bring services to the community for people starting small businesses or people who have small businesses. So anyway, they're doing amazing things, and I just happen to be one of the speakers coming up at an event on April 26th at the Rochester Hills Public Library starting at 11:30. We're going to talk about breaking the glass ceiling, women-focused franchising presentation, and it's free. We have about 20 people signed up. We'd love to get some more. So probably the best way to do that is to go to Eventbrite and Google and type in Oakland Thrive, and you'll see a number of events, including that one. And so keep an eye out for that. You can follow them on Facebook as well. So great organization, and I know Andrea's getting involved in it too.
I am. I'm doing a Marketing 101 session with them on May 25th. I think we just decided the date.
Right.
So May 25th, we'll be doing a Marketing 101, which should also be on that Oakland Thrive on their Eventbrite page.
Yes, and if there's any lady bosses out there who want to get involved, definitely contact us. I can get you connected with some of the people there, or just go to Oakland Thrive. They really are wanting to get more women, minorities, veterans, that type of thing involved in the business community. So let's give them some resources.
Let's give them some lady bosses.
And they actually are starting a program where they will pay, if somebody is launching a business and say they need some public relations support, and I see we have Lee Moss on the line here. Maybe they need legal support, that type of thing. What they would do is they would pay the person and then give the service to the business startup person for no cost.
Yep.
So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, Lee just asked legal startup guidance. Yes. When we spoke to them, I just spoke to them last week, and we talked about the different service lines that they're looking to give, and legal startup is one of them. So we'll definitely connect you, Lee, and I know you have amazing expertise for startups and new businesses.
Yeah.
So that's another piece. And like you said, they're doing some workshops, but then also these service lines where you become a partner service line with them. So it's very cool.
Good opportunities. And we're going to try to have their CEO on one of the next meetings, either the podcast or our face-to-face meeting, which is always the second Wednesday of the month.
Yes.
The second Wednesday of May, we're going to be meeting at Partner House in Birmingham, and we'd love for you guys to join us there, and then we'll be back for a podcast in June.
Yeah.
And I wonder, we need to plug these cookies. Okay, can everyone see them? This is Kendra Quinlan came to speak as one of our panelists last month at the Lady Bosses group, and where we meet in person at Partner House. We had 3 panelists. But anyway, so she made these cookies for all of us, and so got some more for today. Her business is
Save Your Fork.
Save Our Fork.
Save Our Fork?
Desserts.com.
Okay. I love it.
Save Your Fork.
Save
Wait
Your
a minute.
Fork.
Oh, wait a minute. That's the website. Sorry, I didn't mean to. I'm looking here going, yes, Save Your Fork. Desserts.com is her website, but it's Kendra Quinlan. Is that how you say your name?
Yes.
Okay.
So she, talk about a lady boss. She is someone who has a corporate position. She's been working for what was Anderson Consulting, now Accenture, for years, which is how I know her. An amazing sponsor and mentor for women within the organization. And then years ago, she started baking on the side, and she has this business that she does as well. And she's an incredible baker and a mighty lady boss.
These are yummy.
Happy to have her here, and look how pretty she makes our table look, if you can see that.
It.
So, I think we're kind of a wrap.
Yeah,
as
we
just
are.
finish out, we just want to thank you again for all of your, just everything you do and your incredible messaging that transcends everything, right?
Yeah.
Every individual human, wherever we are, you have lots of lessons to teach us. And so thank you for being here today and sharing some of your faith and your wisdom.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you so much for joining us.
And we'll try to be better listeners.
For sure.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Our second episode of Lady Bosses is in the wraps. And we're looking forward to seeing anyone who's local in person next month, as Carol said, and then we'll have a podcast again in June. And if you want to see if you have guests that you think we should have on the podcast in the future, please let us know. We are so grateful for all of the Lady Bosses who are a part of us. And thank you to Inforum for taking the lead with all of us and bringing us all together so that we can all be women leaders. Thank you.
Thank you.
Be well, everyone.
See you guys next time. Bye-bye.